Sudhir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you?
Can you turn on your video, please?
All right. Does it work, Sushant?
Yeah. I can hear you. Hello?
Yep, Sushant.
Yes, I can see you now. Thanks, Sudhir. Thanks for joining. That was a nice video. I'm sorry for the problem with the audio.
No worries.
Welcome to the Saturday live session on Living My Promise.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me begin by introducing Living My Promise to our audience who are watching. Living My Promise invites India's well-to-do to commit to giving half or more of their wealth to philanthropy, either during their lifetime or in their will, to a cause of their choice. Living My Promise is a self-driven initiative started by one of the promises, Mr. Girish Batra, and championed by 48 others as well. The initiative is essentially a community of promises and is not an NGO. This promise is a moral commitment one makes to their own self and the public at large. Living My Promise is inspired by the example of millions of people of all income levels who give generously and often at a great personal sacrifice to make the world better. Living My Promise aims over time to help shape the social norms of philanthropy towards giving more, giving slowly, giving smarter. We hope that through Living My Promise, we can create a community of like-minded individuals who would like to do more and also inspire millions of others to re-benchmark their levels of giving. Those interested can check the website www.livingmypromise.org. Let me also introduce our guest today, Mr. Sudhir Shenoy. He is also a Living My Promise signatory. Sudhir Shenoy is country president and CEO at DOE India. He is disability inclusion evangelist and partner with Social Venture Partners, Mumbai. Sudhir and his wife, Charmaine, are Living My Promise signatories and have helped and have pledged to donate more than 50% of their wealth towards philanthropic causes. Recently, Sudhir has helped set up and is volunteering in the control room at the NSC Dome COVID Hospital in Mumbai. Sudhir?
Thanks, Sushant.
Yeah, that is fantastic to learn about what you've been doing during COVID times. Would you like to start talking by telling about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, to keep it quick, I've been a Mumbaikar all my life, grown up in Mumbai. Actually, pretty unremarkable, upbringing, middle-class family. Father had a small transport business. Unfortunately, my dad lost his eyesight when I was in 10th standard, and he had to stop his business essentially. So three of us, two siblings and myself. Thankfully, we all managed to get educated, though at times barely by the skin of our teeth, having to borrow money to pay through the last few years of college, and then into the professional career thereof. Married, as you talked about, Charmaine, and we have two kids, Anushka and Arav, 11th grader and a 9th grader. And of course, I've been with Dow for the last 23 years now. Been in the chemical industry. I did my chemical engineering as well. So I've been with the chemical industry for almost 30 years now. And here I am today.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So my first question to you is, where did your journey towards philanthropy begin?
So, I mean, it's hard to put a specific date to it, but it's been something which has been part of me from a fairly early stage of life. Whether when I just started my career, helping out in my own way to the office boys, to the security guards where I would work in small ways. Right? In those days, used to be hundreds of rupees. You didn't really have much that you could give. But it's always been something that was a part of me wanting to reach out and help people who were less privileged than I was at whichever stage of life that was. But if I trace it back, I think as I moved up through my professional career and started to see more success, and also as I saw my own, upbringing and the challenges that we went through as my father lost his eyesight and we weren't financially very well to do. And at one point in time, if we hadn't managed to land on our feet, I don't know what the future had in store for us. And that's always been something that's been at the back of my mind, recognizing that we can't take too many things for granted. But thereafter, it kept growing. I had the opportunity to move to Switzerland. At one point during that, the maid who used to work for us had to kind of live with her husband had abandoned her, and she was up bringing up 3 kids on her own, and her brother was throwing her out of the house, so she was going to be on the streets, and I just felt I had to do something. So we reached out and we bought a house for her at that point in time, and it was like a 5 lakh investment to buy a house for her, which still felt okay for me. I never felt the pinch to say that I'm spending 5 lakhs for a maid who does part-time work at home for us. It was what was needed. And a company of a lot of friends, I've had blessed to have some incredible friends like Lakshmi and Ramesh, through whom I learned in the early phases of my development on giving, how they used to be engaged in giving to various causes, right? Cancer patients, students, etc. We went through the adoption. Both my kids are adopted, so we went through that. And again, we had the experience of seeing so many kids, and in those days was a very different phenomenon to what it is today, perhaps. Seeing kids of various ages, kids with some form of disabilities, and how they had been brought up in some of these adoption homes, and were craving for families. I mean, when we would go to we would always take our kids back there to make sure that we never forgot where we came from. And we would see how the other kids craved for affection, how they would come and cling to us if we would go to meet them and play for a few hours. I mean, all of these kept growing within us. I've been involved with Habitat for Humanity for a while now, especially in the last 5 years. Got involved with many of these builds as part of the advisory council that they have to support the phenomenal work that Habitat does as well. My association with social venture partners in the last 4 years, I think I've learned phenomenal stuff from the various partners, from how we've been working with these NGOs that we mentor, and talking about supporting them beyond just the funding element and offering our expertise. That's been a very significant influence in my philanthropic journey. And then lately, in the last few years, working with the likes of Divyanshu, Aparna, and Adventure Beyond Barriers, that I've been very closely involved in the last couple of years for the cause of disability inclusion. The likes of Afro Shah and Indranil and Rabia, some of these are civil society activists who are really passionate and driven about the environment, are giving a huge part of their lives towards these causes. All of these have been inspirations that have just taken me from strength to strength in my journey towards philanthropy.
Yes, Sudhir. For viewers who are watching this live session, if at any point of time you have any questions that you want me to ask Sudhir, please post them in the comment section on the Living My Promise page where this live session is currently being streamed. Sudhir, my next question to you is, how did you involve your family in the decision to sign up to Living My Promise? And did they not have any apprehensions?
So I'm blessed in that sense that at least Charmaine, as my partner, has always been, very much aligned to the way I've been thinking, and we've grown together in that sense. She also comes from a family with a very, very, modest beginning and background, having had her parents had to go through some really difficult times to bring up the kids. And so again, I think for her as well, it's never been hard for either one of us. We always argue a lot about buying things for ourselves or giving to our kids. But when it comes to giving for some other cause, we never have to have any discussion or difficulty. So when the opportunity came to formalize a commitment and to kind of draw a line in the sand and commit to putting our money where our mouth is, I think it was a very short conversation. The kids perhaps went through a few gulps in terms of what are you talking about and what does this mean for us? But at the end, I think I'm thankful that both my kids also have a appreciation of where we've all come from, and the fact that we are so fortunate that we should not have any difficulty. So they've been also, I'm thankful that they are involved with most of the activities that Charmaine and I get into, and not just in terms of the money part of it, but actually they're passionate, involved. My daughter is currently on a summer break trying to do an internship with ABBF and helping on the social media platforms for that NGO and so on. So I'm very pleased that the whole family, I think we are very aligned to the concept of giving.
Yeah. Sudhir, my next question is, do you think there are many corporate professionals in India now who can afford to donate 50% of their wealth?
So I think it's a very interesting statement that I read somewhere, which really, really aligns with me. It said, and I'm sure people have heard about it, says, if you are more fortunate than others, build a bigger table, not a taller fence, right? And I think it resonates with me incredibly, because this is what we typically, and I used to do that myself. And to an extent, I still feel guilty that I tend to fall back into that mindset of protecting my wealth and making sure that I ring fence it from predators and so on, rather than opening myself up to voluntarily giving. So yes, I absolutely believe today there are a lot more corporate professionals, executives that can do substantially more than what perhaps we do today. For me, one of the things I picked up through my journey in philanthropy is that philanthropy cannot be about giving what's left over after you have basically taken care of your plan A, plan B, plan C, safety net, etc., etc. It can't be about, like, to give you an analogy, you order a great meal, you eat what you need, and then whatever is left over, you give over to somebody and you feel that you have done great service, that you've fed people. I mean, to me, that doesn't resonate. That is not true charity. Yeah, by all means, don't waste food, give it to whoever you can, but don't kid yourself into believing that you are doing a service to humanity. You've just taken care of some waste problem at your end and try to make the most of it. But it has to come from giving the best of what you have. And in my mind, at least if I go with my own example, we grew up in a mindset of paucity. We grew up in a mindset where we never could feel comfortable that we would have enough to secure our future, right? And it's both for me and Tramin, that certainly was the early phase of our professional lives, where we were never confident we could, taking the first vacation abroad was something we could not imagine. Buying a car, we could not imagine. Living in a decent sized apartment was something which was meant for the filthy rich people, the businessmen, and not for people like us. But having transformed from that to a point where we are now blessed with more than what we need, probably more than what we have deserved, that mindset still doesn't go away for most people. It's hard to get away from that thinking where you still feel, do I have enough? Still feel uncomfortable that will I end up being short? What if this happens? What if that happens? And that prevents us from going out and taking a plunge and saying, okay, now I think I have more than enough for what it is. The other piece for me is in terms of thinking of giving, having an equal share in your life, in being able to do that as much as you would do to protect your near and dear ones, and not do that after you've taken care of everything else. So for me, I think there is certainly a lot more people that can do this. Everybody is at a different phase in their life and in a different phase in their philanthropic journey. I was too. So I'm not trying to judge or point fingers at anybody else, but I have evolved through that. And I hope that more people can open themselves up. The joy of being, able to make a difference to someone else is phenomenal. I think it has been for me personally, and I think for my family, has been one of the most enriching experiences, even though financially it is the other way around. But I think it is still the most enriching experience that we have had, and that just wants us to do as much as we can in our lifetimes and hopefully beyond.
Yes, Sudhir. Sudhir, we have a question for you. From Venkat Krishnan. He's asking, tell us about the COVID field hospital you helped set up at NSCI and you're operating. How did it happen and how does it work now?
So you said Venkat, right?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Venkat. I did not help set it up. So let me first say it. I'm a very small cog in that massive wheel that is churning out there. But the background, if I can say, is that to me, the COVID scenario in India is the equivalent of a war that India and the world is fighting at large, right? This is pretty much World War III, and hopefully is the only one of its kind in our lifetime that we will see. And to me, it felt that people like myself need to do more than just cut a few checks, right? Give a few rupees, or write our CSR donations or our personal contributions, which I think a lot of people are doing, and rightly so. But it felt like if people like myself, who today have a disproportionate capability to do more, still feel that just making money, paying money out, and then protecting ourselves and sitting indoors and not wanting to take any risks, if we do that, then this country has very little hope. And so I felt that I needed to not just do my bit, but I felt I needed to punch above my weight. And so in that effort, I felt that as the CEO of Dow India, as the chair for the American Chambers of Commerce in the Western region, and of course, in my own personal capacity, there was more I should do. And I tried to reach out and figure out where is that area that I can help. Clearly, at that phase of the pandemic, there was a major shortage of facilities for treating COVID patients. So through various networks, actually the SVP network, this is what difference it makes when you are part of some of these networks. I think through the SVP network, I was fortunate to get connected to Dr. Mufazzal Lakrawala, that many of you may be aware is the top bariatric surgeon in the country, but also a phenomenal individual who went out of his way to create this NSCI Dome facility for isolation of COVID patients. And when we met him, I think the first need that he had was to build these ICU facilities, which he could already foresee as a major gap in terms of being able to treat patients with more critical conditions. And so he asked if I could help him with that. And that was perfect, because it enabled me to not just help on the funding side, but to do the coordination. And even the containers are made with the technology that where the industry is involved. Like what you see out there on the picture is a container that is made with polyurethane panels, which is an area where many of us in the chemical industry are involved with. So it was a beauty of being able to bring in the technology that we were familiar with, alongside with the cause that was desperately needed. And then therefore began a partnership. I worked with initially with American companies to pull together the funding for one unit. We redesigned in partnership with Dr. Lakrawala and his team the unit to make it a much bigger one. The original design was a 2-bed unit. We made it into a 5-bed unit, optimized the designs, the cost structures, got the funding, and now we are working we are now on the second container as well. And actually we are looking at another few containers as we are moving through forward, because unfortunately the need for this continues to be extremely dire. So it's been a great experience for me personally, this engaged philanthropy. So not just the funding part of it, which certainly is a big element, but in terms of actually working together with all of the complexities involved with setting something up. I mean, as you can imagine, it is complex, and there was no playbook based which you can implement it. You're learning on the fly. That time is of the essence. Every day you can make it faster. You're potentially saving more lives, but it is complex. You need to get oxygen. You need to get the HVAC systems. You need to get all of the equipment inside. You need to get the staff and facilities. So I'm delighted that I could play some role in this, and I'm committed to seeing this through for as long as I can. So that picture you see of this this contactless facility that Dr. Lakrawala calls it, because it is largely monitored through video equipment, surveillance equipment that is based in the control room, the war room, from where patients can be monitored, tracked, all of their vitals are available. So it's a phenomenal technology, very frugal, very agile, to help scale up very quickly, and it's picking up very, very well. And I think it is helping save a lot of lives already. So that was my small contribution towards a big problem that the country and the world is having.
Yeah. For viewers who are watching this session, please, if you have any questions for Sudhir, Shenoy, ask them, post them in the comment section of this live session on Living My Promise page. So, Sudhir, we have another question from Arvind Agarwal. He's asking, what causes you support and why?
So, Arvind, while I've been involved with a number of causes, the one that has become the most closely associated with me and the one that I've felt the most passionate about in the last few years is the cause of empowerment and inclusion of people with disabilities. There's a little bit of a story behind it as well. I met with Divyanshu Ganatra, who started a foundation called Adventure Beyond Barriers Foundation. And I have been a adventure and a sports enthusiast for the last decade or so, right? I've been a runner, I've been doing marathons, I've been into adventure sports, trekking, scuba diving, and so on. So when I met Divyanshu at a conference in Bhutan, actually, it really resonated with me, both in terms of adventure being my thing, but also the cause of empowerment of people with disability. And the more I learned about it, I understood that it's one of these, this is this invisible minority population which exists around us. And there are millions, in fact, hundreds of millions of people in India with disabilities, but we don't know any of them. We don't see it around us because it is camouflaged. You don't understand what it is. It just hardly gets any funding. It hardly gets any visibility. The only thing it gets is pity. And that's not what it needs. Right? We don't need pity for our differently abled population. We need to mainstream them. They can be contributing members of society, but unfortunately, the mindset in which most of us are brought up, we feel that they only deserve our sympathy, and which is absolutely not. So if you see even people like Divyanshu are so incredibly inspirational in terms of what they achieve. Divyanshu lost his eyesight at the age of 19 or so, and I think that has not stopped him from being able to do all incredible stuff. Scaling Kilimanjaro, cycling from Manali to Khardungla, right? Things that the average able-bodied person will not dream of being able to do is the type of stuff that Divyanshu does, but also a clinical psychologist by profession, and his vision in life has been to drive this mainstreaming. So I've been a partner in arms with Divyanshu, and one of the proud initiatives for me was when we managed to get the Tata Mumbai Marathon to have an inclusion run. If you have that video, if it works, Sushant, that would be great to share. It's a 1-minute video, but it gives me goosebumps each time I see it. Something which I'm incredibly proud of what we together managed to do to raise the profile of people with disabilities. You think that video works? If you're having difficulty, we can skip it, Sushant. Sushant?
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you. Sushant?
Sudhir, are you able to me? Can you unmute, please?
Yes, I can. And don't bother if the video is not working.
I don't know. There's some issue.
No, no worries. No worries. That's not critical, but
I'm
yeah,
really
I think
sorry
it was.
to the audience who are watching this. There seems to be some technical issue with the live session right now. I'm unable.
Sushant?